Hello, I'm Carey with Devil May Care, and welcome to the next step of my sewing series. This is level 2 sewing. That's right, we've now leveled up, isn't that wonderful? So the first episode of this part of the series is going to be dedicated to Frank. He's been asking a lot of questions on several of our other videos lately about some of the more particular nuances of sewing, and I will be trying to answer all of his questions today. As always, if there's anything that doesn't make sense, if I could explain in more depth, or just something that you're curious about, feel free to follow Frank's wonderful example and leave me comments. You can leave them on this video, on other videos, on our Facebook page, anywhere that you see us. Feel free to ask us questions. I will answer them as soon as I am able to. Now, the first thing I'm going to address is using cone thread. If you have seen the comments, Frank asked about using cone thread. This is what he's talking about. This is a cone of thread, as opposed to, let's see, here we go, as opposed to a spool of thread. Now, you will a lot of times see cone thread used on things like sergers and on embroidery machines, somewhere that you want a lot of thread to be used in a very short space of time. That's what these are typically for, but it is possible to use a cone of thread like this on a standard sewing machine. The easiest way to accomplish this is with a couple of snazzy little apparatuses. This right here, can you see? This is the sort of structure or extra tool that would be used to put the cone thread onto your machine. And what you do, as I just did there, you put the cone thread on the base, run it up through this little hook right here, and then thread it onto your machine. And I will show you how to actually bridge the gap between this thing and the machine. Another variation of this same sort of thing. This is the ideal one. This is the one you will a lot of times find in places like Michael's and Joann's. The base is this sort of cast iron form. It's actually quite heavy. And then you've got these two little rods coming up out of it. And there are even some screw holes in the bottom, if you can see them, where you can attach this to a table or some other device. The thing that makes this particular device the best for using for using cone thread is the hook here at the top. That's the best part, that you can run the thread through, and then you have a better angle on the thread as it comes off of that and goes into your machine. But there are other options if you don't happen to have one of those available, or for some reason can't afford it or just can't find it. You've got something like this. This is actually something that my father made for my mother, because we are a very crafty, handy family like that, when she was endeavoring to use cone thread on a normal machine. And all it is a couple of little wooden dowels stuck into a piece of wood. That's it. That's all it is. Drilled a couple of holes and little drops of glue, shoved the dowels down in there. That's it. And the cone just sits right on that little dowel like that, and then thread your machine. And you can develop variations of this if you are so inclined. You can even, if you feel like building your own thing, you can merge the two together if you wish to. There's really no one right way to deal with this particular problem. The important part is that the cone has to have something in the middle holding it, because it will try to bounce from side to side. And if you're not careful, a problem that Mom ran into with this one, because this is so short, it'll dance its way up and right on off if you get to sewing very quickly. Now let me show you how that threads. Here you have my machine. If I lift the handle, you will see there is the spool of thread, like it usually is, but we are not using him today, so I'm just going to take him right on off of there and get him out of the way. Never mind, that's a bit of, it's a sticker off the end of something else. Ugh, the things that happen. I like to put my little spool holder back on the stop just because I lose things. Now, I am putting my cone of thread on the holder right off to can you see it? I'm putting it off to the right-hand side of the machine. That's the right hand as I'm looking at it. You're, of course, seeing it from the back. I've got the thread run through the hook, and I am bringing it across here. This little, I'm going to hide it, this little tiny knob right here, this little hook is the very first piece that we have to thread the thread through. So that's where it goes. Let me give you a better view of that. Alright, here we have the cone thread on its holder. I've got the thread running through the hook. And if you look down here at the top, you recognize this, right? All of the same little pieces that were there before are still there now, and you thread through them exactly the same way you did previously. Nothing has changed in how the rest of the machine threads. So using the cone doesn't actually change anything about how you thread the machine itself. All it changes is how you're setting up your thread. Instead of coming off of a spool on this little stop, it's coming off of this little stop all the way over here. And you see how I have it set up in relationship to the machine. Keeping it somewhere over here is best, because that's going to have the thread coming from the same direction that it would have been otherwise. That just helps to prevent tangling and things like that. Okay, here I have my machine threaded like normal, but with the cone thread instead of the spool thread. Now I'm going to show you how the foot pedal works. And this is just a sample piece that I'm putting in there for these purposes. And I've got all of my usual straight stitch and about size 3 stitch length, excuse me. Stitch width is nothing, so that it stays straight. Alright, now then, if I go slowly, that is barely pressing down on the foot pedal. And remember, my machine does not have any special settings where I can tell it to go faster or slower. This is strictly controlled by the pressure of my foot. So press very lightly, barely pressing. And did you hear what happened? There we go. Do you hear that noise? But it's not actually moving. I just am barely putting any pressure on the foot pedal. And when you do that, and it's not quite enough to make the gears engage and move, it will just hold like that and make that noise. So put just a little more pressure on it, and it will sew. And that is slow. Now, if I were to do medium, which would be kind of in the middle, it's a good deal faster. And that's only slightly more pressure. Only slightly. That's about halfway down in terms of pressing it to the floor. Now, if you want to see full out, get ready. Hold on. This is full out all the way to the floor. That is how fast it goes when I have the pedal pressed all the way down. That's pretty fast, right? Okay, here I have my spool of thread, which I am using for this demonstration instead of the cone, just because it is a little bit easier. Now, you saw how the cone actually just was set off of the machine but threaded through like normal. If you have to wind a bobbin off of a cone, same rule applies. Just set it up on whatever your rig is off to the side and thread it through like normal. Now, the way that we thread on my machine, and remember, all machines are going to be a little different, we come through this right here, which is the same first step as threading it for sewing. So you come through that little hook. Now this right here is the second step. This is where it changes. And this is actually, if I can show you, this is a spring with a little plate underneath it, and that is just for holding the thread down. And what you want to do is slide the thread in between this little spring and this little plate right in there and loop it around. And if you can see, there is actually a diagram of how it goes, a little dotted line that goes around with an arrow. That's showing you exactly how it should thread. Now the next step, let me slide this over, will be to put it straight on the bobbin stop. This is our little bobbin, and if you look closely, you will see a little hole in the bobbin. The thread has to go through that before you put the bobbin on the little loading stop. And this is one of those tricky things. There we go. Now, if you're dealing with something really tricky like fishing line, yes, you can sew with fishing line, or some of the slipperier upholstery threads, or something like that, you may have to get a tiny piece of tape and tape this down to the top of the bobbin just to stop it slipping out. Now, we put the bobbin on the loading stop. Ooh, get that piece of thread back. It's trying to get away. Okay, let me slide this over so you can see that better. All the rest of this is threaded, and we slide the bobbin on the stop over, or if your machine has the little button on the side, make sure you switch that. Whatever it takes to disengage the needle and engage the bobbin winder, that's what you have to do, and you just have to know your machine to know that. Now, I like to hold on to the thread for a few turns, and all I did was press the foot pedal. I pressed the foot pedal just as if I was sewing, and this is what happens. Now, once it is wound a little bit, I will grab a pair of scissors and snip off that thread, because the thread that has already wound onto the bobbin will hold it'll hold itself together. Just the pressure of being there will hold it. Move things around a bit just so that you can see a little better what's going on. We've got our thread running through all of our little necessary tensioners across, you see the thread coming across, to the bobbin. And I'm now pressing the I'm pressing the foot pedal to make it go. Do you see? Do you see that thread filling up? And I'm not doing anything to it. It is automatically filling down and back up like that. It's just automatically winding that way. Don't fiddle with it. Just press that foot pedal and let it run. It's as easy as that. And then when you're done, grab the thread a little ways down, snip it, disengage, whether it's by pushing that over or by flipping the switch on the side, and there you have it. Your bobbin is wound. And you can wind the bobbin as full or as not full as you want. You can actually fill this bobbin all the way to the very edge. And the one way that you designate that, do you see this little guy right here? This will actually twist. It's got a screw in the top, and it will twist in and out to create more or less distance from the stop whenever it is engaged. What that does is that's actually an automatic cutoff switch, so that when the bobbin gets full enough to touch that right there, it'll just automatically pop back off and be done. It'll disengage itself because it has met this, or it will simply stop winding. Not all machines have those. Not all of them work like this. But some of them do have that feature, and if you see a weird thing next to the stop portion of your bobbin winder, that's what it's for. Okay, and there we are. That was a very short episode, I know, but that was just for Frank to answer all of his questions, and I hope it was helpful, Frank. I hope it was helpful to a few others as well. If you have any more questions, anything that you would like to see me explain in greater detail, or any of what I just did that made absolutely no sense, you know what to do, and I'll see you next time. Psych! I wasn't quite done yet. Have a little more to say. So be sure and check out our merchandise up on Redbubble. We've got Devil May Care designs. We have got merchandise for The Crow Redemption, directed by Dennis Walls. And we also have work up there by T.S. Tyre, our resident artist and designer, who is amazing. Also, look at some of the videos that we've got lying around here somewhere that are by the devil himself doing makeup tutorials. there's a few of them that I'm in. So have a look at those, and if you have any questions, of course, let us know. If you have other makeup tutorials you would like the devil to do, or even just pose for, because I love painting his face, feel free to let us know. Tell us here in the comment section, tell us on Facebook, tell us on Instagram, any of the places where you can find us. Let us know what you want to see, and we will do our best to accommodate. And thank you very much for coming to see me one more time, and I'll see you again.